Realistically, these three are the best characters. But if you want to analyze Dragon Ball from a broad scope of why it's such an iconic and enduring work, this is probably Toriyama's best character. It's still possible that none of those four are the best character in Dragon Ball because the best character in Dragon Ball would be someone who is widely recognized as an all-timer fan favorite. It would be someone with an iconic character design and a memorable introduction. It would also be a character with a great emotional storyline that cuts to the heart of the human experience and why we find comfort in art in the first place. And it would be a character who fights against adversity and inspires us to become better. Trunks Brief does all that in one fucking arc. One of the many reasons Dragon Ball is such a potent work is that Toriyama understands that the introduction to a character is basically a one-to-one with the audience's expectations of that character. So the better an introduction, the more you're supposed to care about them. Toriyama had been doing this extremely well the entire length of Dragon Ball because almost all of the recurring cast members are villains. They have great introductions because they challenge the protagonist's son Goku and put up a good fight, so we as audience members respect them for their fighting ability. Multiple times, the next main antagonist of the story has a direct confrontation with the previous antagonist and showcases the gap between them. You can see this aspect most clearly when Mercenary Tao defeats General Blue, and when Raditz laughs at Piccolo's attacks and KOs his brother in one hit. Frieza is set up as being the intergalactic warmonger general that has Vegeta around a tight leash, and we know how strong Vegeta is because of how crazy the battle against him was. You can see Toriyama using simple and visible building block style storytelling. What's interesting about Trunks' introduction is that Toriyama takes the trope he established and turns the knobs slightly. Frieza is a villain so far removed from the scope of everything the characters in the audience have seen up until this point that it is going to be extremely difficult to top what Toriyama accomplishes with the character. So, to solve this, Toriyama answers it directly. I know Frieza was a villain beyond measure, and now he's back. Frieza was a monster in the truest sense. How are we going to make the audience believe that there will be a bad guy even greater than him? When Goku turned Super Saiyan against Frieza, he didn't invalidate him. There was an elongated fighting sequence, so not only does this newcomer do what Goku couldn't, he does so while wearing two pieces of the establishment. By having Trunks defeat Frieza so effortlessly, it hypes him up insanely, and the mystique is out of control because he's a Super Saiyan that's not Goku. There is a mystery element not common in Dragon Ball which adds an automatic sense of prestige to his character. Trunks' intro has this powerful jump start effect. Ever since the Saiyan Saga, every story event has been this drawn out and dramatic atmosphere because none of the heroes are strong enough to easily contend with the threat. Trunks lands, KOs Frieza, or farms on his dad and then blows up the spaceship they came in on. It's quick, and you get the feeling immediately that something is different about this guy because of how fast he moves through the story. His introduction doesn't stop here, though. Trunks' actual narrative function is to warn the cast of a threat so potent and beyond the threshold that they lose. That's his role. And that role is elevated to an intimately believable level because he just demonstrated how strong he is. And if the good guys lost, what hope do they have other than to listen to his warning? If there was such a thing as objective ranking and writing critique, I would rank this as an S-tier introduction because holy shit! Not only does Trunks have that shit on like no one else, he also starts the next storyline with a sense of urgency and purpose. It links them together instead of it feeling disconnected. Trunks himself as a character ties the threads of the Frieza saga and the Cell saga directly by being involved in both. Trunks doesn't necessarily need to do that, mind you. Toriyama is just a good writer. All Trunks' job is to be the ominous warning character. I'm a Dragon Ball fan, so of course I like the story, but even trying to remove my bias, what is accomplished in this introduction is so legendary that I've yet to see anything even remotely like it for any other character in any other work of fiction. Not movies, not shows, not books, not video games, nothing. Trunks' introduction is seriously a masterpiece of connective storytelling and making an instantly recognizable character simultaneously. The whole time, Trunks is wearing a Capsule Corp jacket, so even before he says a word to the good guys, we know he's on their team. That's what good writing is. It's not about good ideas in isolation, it's about building up to something greater than the sum of its parts and using the established elements of the setting in a fun and interesting way. Supreme Kai is basically the same plot device. Walk into the story mysteriously and warn the cast of a threat more dangerous than ever before, yada yada, you know. The problem is that throughout the entirety of the Boo saga, he gets less accomplished than Trunks does at the beginning of this arc, even though Trunks has only been on screen for 64 pages. I brought up these elements before, but it's important that I explain this. Trunks being connected to Bulma through his parentage and Goku through the identical storytelling concept of Super Saiyan makes the audience warm up to him quickly. Him being the son of Bulma and Vegeta is just another example of writing commitments made by Toriyama, but the audience accepts these commitments because they have been established by Gohan, and Toriyama wisely recognizes this fact and so pairs these characters together in this storyline. This isn't something I can rate in Trunks' favor per se, but it comes as a consequence from him setting up the story. Trunks' warning is ahead of time, meaning that the group has 3 years to strategize and prepare before the artificial humans arrive. I can't really mention this anywhere else in the video, but I wanted to mention it here because I love how Dragon Ball is always using the passage of time as a storytelling concept. It's what makes Dragon Ball feel so unique in the landscape of shonen. There is a major time skip after almost every single arc. It's not something necessarily that Trunks is doing, but it becomes easier to see because the man literally comes in on a time machine. Love this shit, man. Trunks is the match that gets the story started, and being a Super Saiyan from the future really sets the tone, which makes the Cell Saga feel fundamentally different from everything that came before, and as such, is often a lot of fans' favorite storyline in the entire series. A lot of people have Trunks as their favorite character, but this is just the intro, and a character is more than how they start, it's also how they finish. But before we do that, we gotta get there. In writing theory, people often talk about having a good backstory, but that's not really necessary at all for a good character, even a protagonist. If anything, having a solid backstory for a character is more important for the writer than for the audience because you can more sharply define how they move through the story. So what's Trunks' backstory?
Aren't planning anything, are you?
What am I going to do with that boy? There's no talking him out of it.
Stick around for a while this time, Gohan. We hardly get to see you anymore. I miss the good old days.
Hey, relax. Let's forget about becoming a Super Saiyan for a while, huh?
What am I doing wrong? You're my master, Gohan. You can tell me. Why can't I do it?
You can.
A backstory is not a replacement for characterization, even if that backstory is good. What are the foundations for making a compelling character? Those come down to 2 things: character arcs and goals, and how the story uses the character to accomplish these objectives. Sometimes a character blatantly failing at these things is good writing, but that's usually because it's a specific design intention and how we watch them crumble under their own decision-making or circumstance. What are Trunks' goals? His goals are to prevent the future from taking place and to stop the artificial humans from conquesting the Earth like they did in his time. As a writing concept, because of the fact that so much time is spent on this, we now want to see this reality bear out. We want to watch Trunks and the protagonists deal with this unique threat, and we want to see just how strong the artificial humans are since they were hyped up so much. Later on in the story, Trunks returns. This guy is a particularly proactive character, and you'll see this storytelling idea pop up time and time again with Trunks. Due to his constant involvement in move-making, the audience binds to him even further. Characters in stories get boring if it's all about reacting to the next threat and never having the protagonists make moves themselves. When Trunks enters the narrative for the second time, Toriyama is now committing to him being a protagonist instead of a plot device. Supreme Kai never crosses the line in the sand like this, but that's possibly because Trunks is related to a recurring cast member, whereas Supreme Kai isn't. Due to Trunks being linked to Vegeta, Vegeta is now given priority in the narrative, and Trunks gets to go in different directions rather than just plot-specific ones. Goku was warned by Trunks about the heart virus, so when he's punished for not properly adhering to his words, Trunks is elevated further in the audience's mind. Consequences are doled out swiftly, and Goku is removed from the conflict. What really works here is how Toriyama maintains the mystery element. After Vegeta dispatches Android 19, Trunks arrives and discovers that these are not the artificial humans of his time. This works great for the progression of the narrative and doesn't feel like stalling at all, even though this could in the wrong hands. Android 20 finds a solution to escape the combined might of the group, and that comes at the same time Bulma's Sky Car enters the scene. What I like about this moment is how seriously it's taken and how Toriyama uses character writing to establish firm traits in those characters. Trunks exists in this middle point between Bulma and Vegeta, taking character traits from both to become who he is. He gets his strength from his Saiyan heritage, but the thoughtfulness and pragmatism from Bulma. Bulma had to go on a character arc to even get to the point where she's not shitty. And her being so kind in the future timeline is a response to the devastation of her world. Trunks' physical traits exactly mirror this too. He looks like the spitting image of Bulma, but when he goes Super Saiyan, who else can he be other than Vegeta's son? As a result of that strong foundation, this is one of my favorite moments in the entire arc. Trunks is worried for his mother. She's the mastermind behind this whole operation and is clearly not capable of fighting the way he is. So when Android 20 blows up the chasm, he rushes to her aid as soon as he can. Once he sets her down and confirms the situation, he immediately confronts Vegeta. Isn't that the mother of your children? What the fuck's your problem? Trunks is then hit by the stonewall reality that Vegeta is a villain. He is a protagonist, yes, but he's not a good guy. This is another reason why Trunks is such a good character. It doesn't begin and end at the combat. He's an emotional character with believable reactions to the events happening around him and is more responsible than his cast full of jagged and emotionally stunted reformed enemies. After this, Trunks realizes that they didn't really follow his instructions and he might have to experience the desecration of his home once again. This character is emotional, but it never comes across as brooding or angsty, which is extremely impressive. As the story progresses, Trunks continues to get even further involved. The artificial humans being so strong confirms the warning in the beginning of the story. When Cell gets introduced is where things become tricky. It's a curveball in the truest sense because it actively derails what's going on. This video is about Trunks, but I do want to speak on Cell because it does have to do with character usage. If you play it straight, you don't have the luxury of surprising the audience, but surprising the audience is not worth it if you as the author don't have strong ties for this idea in the climax. The plot is about the artificial humans. Gohan is not the protagonist of this story and takes a firm backseat the entire time in a way that he did not in the Saiyan saga nor the Frieza saga. If anything, Trunks is the leading man of this story with Goku, Piccolo, and Vegeta serving as deuteragonists. Gohan's place in the story is below even that. It's more like a vision problem. The Cell Saga doesn't know exactly what it's trying to be. The Frieza Saga is both about hunting for the Dragon Balls and hyping up the mythos of Saiyan legend simultaneously, so when the climax happens, that's why Super Saiyan really worked. I don't think the Cell Saga ever manages that fusion of elements. The beginning of the Cell Saga is clearly trying to be some sort of action mystery, which is extremely interesting, but it doesn't commit to it and doesn't tie its elements together in the climax, in my opinion. Cell as a character throws Trunks' journey into the air, and while he sticks the landing, it's not perfect. It forces the cast to regroup and introduces the Room of Spirit and Time. While it does poke some holes into the setting, I do ultimately like it because it feels like this concept is the kind of thing Bulma was planning on happening by sending her son into the past. That somehow he would grow from the journey, not just change the future. And that's another core pillar of character usage, growth. Trunks grows over the course of the story. He has the sword in the beginning, and loses it in the battle against the cyborgs. He grows his hair out and changes his clothes to the Saiyan battle armor after exiting the time chamber. He becomes stronger in a physical sense and pushes the boundaries of Super Saiyan. When a character can show change through your story, it invigorates the audience and provides a sense of movement. This is foundational to Dragon Ball's appeal as a story. Trunks doesn't go on a character arc like Piccolo does, but the feeling is still there because he does change. That moment where Trunks and Krillin head off to Giro's lab kind of snuck up on me because it's become one of my favorite parts of the arc. Krillin and Trunks acting in this very mission-based way is very satisfying. He takes the lead here, and that's what protagonists do. That's why I call Trunks the protagonist in this story. Most of the time, he's acting like a leader, not a follower. What Toriyama does with Trunks in this arc is fascinating because most of the audience should hate this. People initially didn't like Raiden for the same reasons. When a newcomer is crowned as the most important character in an established narrative, it's going to be hard to earn the favor of the crowd, but I think Toriyama's strong writing and having Trunks follow the path created by Gohan helps the viewer want him to succeed in his goals. I think it really is as simple as creating a character that is linked to other characters people already like. I like what Toriyama does here with the grades and stuff, but in my opinion, this is the only part of Trunks' usage that falters a bit. When Trunks and Vegeta exit the time chamber, they fly down, and what Trunks was trying to do, destroy the artificial humans, is just kind of undone to focus on Cell's path. He's used to hype up a threat that he's not personally connected to and then just kind of falls away from the story slowly. After Cell transforms and Trunks realizes that he's in a losing position, he asks Cell to kill him. It's weird because if there was any character to do this, it'd probably be Trunks, but it also feels out of character. It's hard to put my thoughts together on this one. In the climax of the story, Trunks' usage is as a bystander commentator and then as an emotional support beam when he's KO'd by Cell. This works both for the audience and for the character of Vegeta. It works for Vegeta because after 3 arcs, he finally has something to care about other than himself. And it's a nudge in the right direction for his story. It raises the stakes because after everything Trunks has gone through, he might just die to something he couldn't have seen coming, but that's also the problem with this climax. Cell's not anything we haven't seen before, and many of the other things that we're so focused on in this arc simply aren't present or are sacrificed to facilitate it. The clear threats stated in the outset, the artificial humans, are far more unique characters than Cell's final evolution, and you could even argue that Trunks gets in the way of Gohan having a more focused finale. This is a non-small criticism, mind you, because Goku is definitely not the protagonist of this specific storyline, and neither is Gohan. If there is anyone who qualifies for that role, we know who it is. That's why Trunks is genius, but it's a mad genius, unwieldy. By aiming so much of the spotlight on Trunks this arc, we lose focus on who's supposed to end the story. Toriyama makes the right call insofar as having someone else take his place in the climax, but it's not perfect. I think this is probably the section of the story that benefits the most from the additional content provided in the anime adaptation. His final rank for character usage is A, still amazing and well above par, but with some things holding him back. I want to start the last section of the video by ranking him. His conclusion is an S. Here's why. Dragon Ball is a long-running series, not a standalone or a film. Because of this, one of the biggest problems you have to solve as a writer is introduced. That is, making your characters exit stage left. This is notoriously hard to do in a satisfying way, and most series aren't capable of doing this. Dragon Ball itself suffers from this issue. It's pretty widely agreed upon that GT and Super aren't as good as the source material. Since Trunks is removed from everyone, he only aids the story. Him being separated like this means that as a writer, Toriyama can sever him totally from the rest of the group without it feeling forced. Using Trunks like this also means that other cast members get to come to the forefront more easily. Vegeta gets great character moments by being highlighted. Bulma finally gets more to do and contributes in a pretty serious way, both emotionally and in the plot itself. Krillin is allowed moments. Piccolo clutches up multiple times. Even Tien shines by holding off Cell on the islands. This is the kind of thing Trunks accomplishes by being behind the glass, so to speak. Dragon Ball also gets to have its cake and eat it too. This is not Trunks, at least not how we knew him. We know this character is supposed to exist due to the fact that he's from the future, but because this is not his time, he leaves when he's supposed to, and additionally, because that separation exists between Kid Trunks and Future Trunks, that new one does not ruin what came before, and if anything, affirms Trunks' mission and proves he did his job. Oolong, Puar, Yamcha, Tien, Launch, Chaozu, Yajirobe, and many other characters don't exit the story with this level of grace. All of these guys are effectively done, but they just kind of hang around, which feels bad. They exist in this half-in, half-out limbo. There's a reason Trunks is a lot of people's favorite character, and that's because Toriyama is all in on him narratively. He's here, so we're gonna use him, and when his time is up, you have to say goodbye. He's a special character. His conclusion is S tier because Toriyama doesn't forget. Trunks may not have been involved in the climax against Cell, but he's the one that started this story. The fact of the matter is that this has one of the most cathartic releases ever depicted in a fictitious work. This goes beyond manga in Japanese entertainment. When Trunks returns to his time, there's only one way things can go.
It's a matter of principle.
I don't mind. Consider it done. But look, sis, we'll be blowing weeks worth of fun. Comprende?
I don't care. I need this. I've been in a bad mood all day.
Hey, he's behind you! He's changed. I don't know how, but he's good.
I hate you!
You hate the fact that you're powerless to stop me, that you're completely outmatched. Well, imagine feeling the way you do now all of the time like the people of this planet do. Fools! How do you think my master Gohan felt when you ganged up on him in the rain and he had no way out? Well, now it's your turn. I hope you enjoy it.
That was one mistake you won't live to regret!
You think this life is all about you, don't you? What about the others? The ones that you two killed?
I can only speculate, but I think why the Cell Saga is so many people's favorite is because it is one of the rare stories that has the double climax. The Z-Fighters dispatch the threat in their timeline, and then Trunks returns home to defeat the villains in his. It's very difficult to properly set up this idea, but if you can do it, it clearly has great results. Trunks is Dragon Ball's best character because he has the greatest backstory, emphatic introduction, fantastic usage as a character throughout the entirety of the arc, grows stronger over the course of the story, has many emotional moments, steps back to allow Gohan to go Super Saiyan 2, and then ends on a resounding high note that doesn't overstay its welcome. It's important that I restate this. Trunks is the protagonist of this story, so technically, any climax not involving him is going to feel unfulfilling. But by Toriyama actively removing him through Cell's actions, Gohan then has the moment to surpass his father. Trunks is dangerously close to being that Mary Sue character, but doesn't due to Toriyama's stringent focus on having his characters be underdogs, being willing to put them on the back foot, and that Trunks doesn't have all the answers. He doesn't just hog the spotlight, so he never crosses into that fanfic OC please don't steal territory, and instead becomes one of the best, even in a cast full of iconic characters. Saying goodbye is hard, but it's an important skill to learn. Just because they're not here anymore doesn't mean that the time we spent with them wasn't valid.
You take care.